But there's another question. Okay, she's stupid. I think, you could say that. Not the brightest light in the circuit, not the sharpest tool in the shed. Sheryl Sandberg, she was the former chief operating officer of Meta. And I have no reason to doubt she's a very bright woman. She was top student in her economics class at Harvard, studied under Lawrence Summers. So, we're talking about serious business here. And she makes this after October 7th, she makes this documentary called Screams Before Silence, in which she proves that Hamas was weaponizing rape on October 7th. Now, as I told you earlier, I am way past, and have for a very long time, been way past dismissing things with which I disagree in a flippant way. I passed the bourgeois propaganda stage. I passed the Zionist propaganda stage. That's not, for me, a satisfactory response. I didn't know what to make of the original claims about rape having been weaponized. I didn't know what to make of them. I was skeptical. I was skeptical for reasons which I don't think many people were convinced by, but it convinced me. I know devout Muslims, and I know roughly Gazan culture. And it did not, if you remember, and here I want to, say out loud, people did not agree with me, but they were describing the Israelis were describing gang rapes that allegedly occurred on October 7th, where the men were carrying on with such sexual bravado and such sexual confidence. You will recall they talked about cutting off a woman's breast and tossing it around, things like that. And most of the guys who burst the gates of Gaza were around 20 years old. They weren't married because Hamas was a large enough organization, not the claims that are made, but probably around 15,000 people. They're not going to send what was effectively a suicide mission, except for the ones who were supposed to bring back hostages, but in general it was a suicide mission. They're not going to put people on the suicide mission who have family. Family is important there. Children are important there. The father is the breadwinner. So it's basically, because of Muslim culture, it was basically guys who had no sexual experience who burst through the gates of Gaza. And so the images that were being projected were like of a pathological frat house. Something out of like Friday the 13th or something, gang rapes, tossing around breasts like footballs. That doesn't sound like young men from Gaza. I'm not saying they're not capable of it. And I remember a good friend of mine, Muin Rabbani, who I think the world of, he said, well, in war, things happen. Yes, I will grant that, but I didn't believe this. It just didn't sound right. But as Lenin, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, he liked to quote what was then a British proverb, facts are stubborn things. I have to get the facts. This is a speculation. It's a hunch. It's not a fact. So I started to look what was the evidence that was being adduced in support of this claim. There was no forensic evidence. There was no what's called medical legal evidence. The claim, and it did have a patina of plausibility, was the numbers of people killed were so large on October 7th, and they were processing the bodies so rapidly that they had no time to preserve any possible forensic evidence, semen, things like that. Okay, I kind of thought that was plausible, but there was one thing that didn't strike me as plausible. So in Pramila Patten, who was sent on this quote-unquote, wasn't an investigation. She said, because I don't know anything about investigations. Whatever she was on, I never knew what exactly she was supposed to do. She said she was supposed to give voice to the victims. I thought, well, that's a little bit premature because you don't know if there were victims of rape. That's what you're supposed to find out before you give voice to them, okay? And here, you're as capable as me of rendering a judgment. So what tipped the scales for me was the following. Pramila Patten said, we looked at 50 hours of video, 50 hours of digital, they call it digital evidence. And it was from every possible source. There was CCTV. There was dash cam video, digital evidence. There was body cam digital evidence from the militants who were killed. They had the cameras, okay? There was iPhone, all right? 50 hours, which is not a small amount. That's several Cecil B. DeMille extravaganzas. And she said, we looked at 5,000 photographs. Again, not a small amount. And she said, we have no digital or photographic evidence of sexual violence. Those are her words. No digital. So
striking.
That did not seem to me very plausible. You're describing gang rapes to the left of me, gang rapes to the right of me. That's what they're describing at the Nova Music Festival, where the biggest killings occurred. They're saying gang rapes, gang rapes, gang rapes. And then your generation, which is not my generation, you know that your generation documents everything. You go to a restaurant with somebody and they serve the dishes. Waiter, can you take a picture of the dishes? You take a picture of this. You can take a picture of that. Now, the alleged witnesses, they said they were hiding when they observed the gang rapes. You didn't take out a camera? Now you say, well, maybe it's wartime. Well, I got news for you. Israelis are posting every day on the social media, on Facebook and elsewhere, images of what they're doing in Gaza. I mean, it's just so off the wall. I mean, really, very sick country, very sick country, very sick. But they're posting all these images in the middle of the war. And no one, not one picture, not one image. Is that plausible? Well, what do you say? Is that plausible?
No, it seems unlikely to me.
Yes. So when she said we have no digital evidence of rape, no photographic, not of rape, of sexual violence, none, I say, you lose me. So Sheryl Sandberg, to return to the former chief operating officer of Meta, a billionaire, formidable personality, for sure. She knows academic standards. She knows academic standards. She knows scholarly standards. She knows evidentiary standards. She's got to. You're not the top student in your class in economics at Harvard University and not know evidentiary standards. She writes of, she makes this documentary called Screams Before Silence. She says it's the biggest achievement of her life, the one she takes such pride in. And aside from interviewing witnesses, nothing. Nothing. You know, these are for the cause. You remember how I said in the 80s, every Jewish intellectual wants to do something for the cause? It's the same thing. After October 7th, they want to do something for the cause to show that, you know, the solidarity and that they are willing to make, I know it's laughable, but to make sacrifices for the cause. So this is her biggest achievement. And I wrote in the book, if this is her biggest achievement, and she's lived a squandered life. I didn't, you know, people ask me what I entered with presumptions, prejudices. As I said, it seemed implausible to me. But I had enough criticism when I said, I don't believe those guys. I just don't believe this. I don't want to get into personal detail, but you know every guy, first sexual experience, you feel awkward. Am I wrong here?
You're not wrong.
And so, but this sounded like gang rapes, tossing around like a football. You know, there was a level of bravado which just didn't seem congruous for me, knowing the young men, you know? But after that, of course, my responsibility is to look carefully at the evidence. And you will note, as I note in the book, or in the chapter, both Human Rights Watch and the UN Commission of Inquiry, even though they were very harsh on Hamas, maybe deservedly so, maybe not, I won't go into that, both of them said, quote,